Hey everybody, today's topic is going to be about people who see themselves as losers. So, this could be anybody in your life. This could be a friend, this could be a classmate, this could be yourself. Imagine an individual opens up to you and says, I'm a loser, no one likes me. What would you say? What would be your response to that? This is a class. This was a question that my professor asked in class the other day. And guess what? How the students start responding. One of the responses immediately is to reject it, right? So you open up to your friend, you go, look, I'm a loser, or I've been feeling down lately. And the first reaction you get is, no, you're not. That's not true. And the problem with that response is when someone opens up to us and they tell us, hey, this is what I am, we have this kind of innate instinct to push away, to go, no, 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 that's not true. You're not a loser. You're a great person. You're kind and you're sweet and you're confident and you're funny and people like you. But what we don't recognize is that actually pushes the person farther away from us. Human beings intrinsically want to be right. If you think you're confident and someone comes and tells you something otherwise, you're going to distance yourself. And the same thing is true with negative thoughts. So if a person comes up to me and goes, Daniel, I'm a loser, no one likes me. And immediately I go, dude, you're not a loser. No, you're not a loser. It's not true. My reaction, my response is a complete contrast to the belief that you hold. And for the sake of being right, you're going to push me away. So that's actually not the best response when someone opens up. So now, devil's advocate, some people are sitting there, or I guess want to talk about the other side and go, okay, so if someone says, I'm whatever, I have this negative thought, I should then agree with them. I should say, yep, you are. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And obviously, we know that that isn't the case either. Why? We have two different ideas here. Idea number one is, I'm a loser. Idea number two is, I think I'm a loser, right? There's an objectivity, there's a subjectivity. There's a gentleman out there who I was listening talk about gender and politics and whatnot, and he starts saying, look, there's a lot of problems with people saying my truth and my reality, right? Because there's an objective truth to some degree. We can all agree a table's a table. We can all agree what the function of a bridge is, right? We can all look at a dog and say that's a dog. That's not a horse. So there's a level of objectivity. However, you get to a place in life where there's a lot of subjectivity in reality, meaning the reality that we experience is not identical. We see it differently. When I think of authority, for the sake of argument, the first things that maybe come to mind are respect and protection. When you think of authority, the government or the police, the first things that might come to mind are corruption and greed. So reality is objective, but there's definitely aspects of subjectivity in there. And what we have to recognize is, look, being a loser isn't making that person upset. Like, the fact that you're a loser isn't a big deal. The problem is your thoughts in relation to being a loser. So what does being a loser mean to you? Does that kind of make sense? Okay, let me give you another example. An event happens where you let someone down. Your best friend said, hey, I need you to be here at this time on this day, and you weren't there. And when you're not there, your friend gets mad at you, you get really upset. Why are you upset? The first thought is, well, you're upset because of that event. Not exactly. You're not upset because of the event in and of itself. You're upset because of your interpretation of the event. You're more upset about the thoughts that you had afterwards, which are now influencing your current mood. Right? Because after you didn't show up, you weren't there, you weren't dependable for your friend, now you have feelings of guilt, you have feelings of sadness, you're upset, maybe you're angry at yourself, and you're having thoughts of, I'm not a good of a friend, he's not going to trust me anymore, he would do the same for me, man, I'm going to apologize, but What if it's not okay for him? How can I win his trust back? And it's those thoughts that actually create the feeling. So if you're in a place right now where you feel like a loser, or you feel like there's something terribly wrong in your life, and you feel like you're not normal, I want you to sit with that for a minute. And whether it's you who we're talking about, or a friend or someone close to you, I hope that we can use this dialogue in a healthy and productive manner, rather than deny people their feelings, rather than reject them and push them away, or shame someone for feeling a certain way. If you're my friend and you tell me, Daniel, I'm a loser, no one likes me, my first thought is, okay, what is a loser? Describe a loser to me. What does a loser look like? And then maybe my friend goes, well, a loser is someone who sits alone when they're eating lunch. A loser is someone who doesn't have many friends. There's someone who has poor self-esteem. There's someone who sometimes, I don't want to say trick, but it's hard for people to describe themselves sometimes. So you go, oh, okay, you label yourself as a loser. Well, describe this idea of a loser to me. And it's kind of an indirect way of getting this individual to describe themselves, right? So they start naming all these things. And once they're finished, maybe I do a summary and I say, okay, so this is what a loser looks like, correct? And he goes, yeah. Are you doing these things right now? And he goes, yeah. I say, okay. What would you like to happen? What would you like to happen now that you've shared these things with me? Are you looking for someone to just listen to you? I can do that. Are you looking for advice about what to do? Why? I can do that too, to the best of my knowledge. So let's say hypothetically, the things that you say are true. Okay, I believe you. Where do we go from here? Is it, I'm a loser and it sucks and life is hard and literally that's it, I don't want any advice? Okay. Hey, I understand. I'm really sorry to hear that. If there's anything I can do to help out, let me know. And that's it. And this is going to be very, very, very hard for people. No unsolicited advice. If an individual doesn't ask for your advice, be very hesitant on giving it. One of the most important things that I've ever learned when studying mental health is, for whatever reason, when an individual reaches a conclusion on their own, they are far more likely to pursue that idea rather than someone else giving it to them. I can't tell you the amount of situations I've had, and I promise you, you've had them as well. You see someone in a bad place, you give them unsolicited advice that they did not ask for. That person does not follow your advice, right? And then you see the hardships they go through because of it. 3-4 weeks later, they start doing the thing that you told them a month ago. And they come to you and they go, hey, look, I've recently changed my life. I'm doing this and this. I feel a lot better now. And you go, oh, well, that's interesting. And maybe you're a nice person and you don't say I told you so, so you just listen. And you go, well, what made you make the change? I don't know. I just woke up one day and I decided this is what I wanted to do. Now in your head, you're going, you son of a gun. If you would have listened to me a month ago, these problems and these hardships could have been avoided. But for whatever reason, it's this natural human instinct to emphasize autonomy. And there's individuals, especially when they start hitting puberty, I'm talking about teenagers, or younger than teenagers, really adolescents, 10, 11, 12, where me making the decision and emphasizing my autonomy is almost, if not more important than me being right. So if dad says do X, but I really want to do Y, I would rather do Y because it allows me to make an independent decision, right? That's why there's a kind of fun interplay between parents and children where if you don't say anything, you're the parent who doesn't care, right? What a great dad you are. If you keep saying things, well, now you're a tyrant. Now you're a dictator, right? And who wants that as a dad? And then we wonder why kids are so excited to move out, right? So you kind of have this in-between balance that you got to be very, very careful of, how far do you push forward And how far are you going to be lenient and relaxed and kind of let them do what they want to do and let them make their own decisions, even if that might be making mistakes? Regardless, that's another topic for another video, but I want to conceptualize this idea in that when someone opens up to us and they say, look, I'm not doing well, there's several ways that we can respond. It is important that one, that individual feels heard, and second of all, we understand, what do you want from me? Like, what would you like to happen? And they might say nothing. And if it's nothing, now, take this with a grain of salt. As a friend, if your friend who's your same age says, look, I just wanted to open up, but I don't need any advice, I don't need anything from you, it's a little easier to let them do their thing, as opposed to you're a parent and that's your child, right? Or maybe you're an older brother and that's your younger sibling. Or maybe you have a younger niece or younger cousin. There's some sort of responsibility that that's my family, you know? I gotta look out for them. I know they don't want my advice, but I'm not their friend, right? I'm their family. I'm their protector. So how can I reconcile that? Giving them what they want versus what I believe they need with my own experience and knowledge. If you're this individual who believes that they are a loser, here's what I'd recommend. If you are looking for advice, if you're not looking for advice, forget what I'm about to say. But if you are looking for advice, this is what you do. You're going to sit down on a notebook. You're going to write down all those things that you said that a loser looks like. All those things, and I want you to write them down. Why? Because in order to fully understand ourselves, we have to tap into our unconscious part of our brains. Now, we can't just do that regularly. How does the unconscious come out? Well, there's several ways. One of them is in conversing. When you talk to someone, when you're having a conversation, you're going to say certain things out loud that you might not actually know that you believed until you say them out loud and you're like, holy smokes, I didn't know I thought that way. That's one. Number two is writing. I want you to write down all the things that you believe make you a loser. Well, physically, I don't look that great. What about you specifically? Well, I've got some extra, like, belly fat I could get rid of, and I don't have the nicest haircut, and really I haven't taken care of my nutrition as much. Okay, keep going. Once you have all those things written down, if you're an individual who is looking for advice, then you're going to write the opposite right beside it. What is the opposite of a loser? You tell me, is that a winner? Whatever word you use to describe the opposite of being a loser in your mind. Okay, so if a loser slouches when he's in class, does a winner have good posture? If a loser only eats Nutella, chocolates, and chips throughout the day, does a winner eat vegetables and fruits and protein throughout the day? So what is the opposite? So by the end, you've written down all of your traits, characteristics, and habits on one side, and all the traits, characteristics, and habits you would like to acquire on the other side, right? So you should have two columns right next to each other. And now the question becomes, how can I begin to adopt these characteristics on the right side? And the key here is to go as simple as possible. Like, I'm talking ridiculously simple. If you go, look, I don't brush my teeth. It's just something I don't do. If you want to better yourself, if you want to move from one category to another, if you believe your perception that someone who's a winner has great shining white teeth, maybe you start brushing your teeth. That could be moving forward. Maybe you're disorganized. Your sheets are all over the place and you can't find a sock to save your life. Maybe the little thing you could do today is just make your bed when you wake up. Right? Or when you take your coat off when you come in, don't throw it on the ground, put it in the coat hanger. That in and of itself is a win. So the hardest thing to establish with an individual is when we want to move from one place to another. Generally, the story is this: you start from the bottom, you make your way to the top, and then you're extremely happy. And the first conception is, oh, this individual is happy because they are at the top. No, I don't believe that's the case. You're missing it. This individual is happy Because, ready for it? They can look back and see how far they've grown. And when they see how much better, when you go from not brushing your teeth at all to 4 days a week, to 6 days a week, to 7 days a week, when you go from you've never worked out in your life to now you're regularly working out once a week, and you've been doing it for a month, that's huge, right? You compare yourself to you, and when you compare the trajectory that you've had in your life, that is when you feel good. What's the first thing any rapper does when he starts making a lot of money? Well, what are the two songs that are really big? There's two genres always. I don't care who the rapper is. One is about, I've got all these girls, I've got all this money, I'm living so well, right? What's the second type of song he makes? Exactly. It's about his past. It's about how I got here. It's about, my parents were so broke we had to pour water into the milk because we couldn't afford to buy new milk. We couldn't keep the lights on. I was wearing sweaters in my living room, right? Don't you ever wonder why they do that? When you've made it to the top, all you can talk about is what it was like going to the top. When you talk to a martial arts master, he will love talking to you about the hours that it took to get there. And some of them weren't fun, and the majority of them weren't fun. The beatings and the training and losing the tournaments. When you talk to any of these famous guys, the CEOs, the Gary Vaynerchuks, every time I'm pressed on his face, I hear him say something like, I loved working 12 hours a day in my dad's liquor store. It's like they fantasize it, right? So this tells us that if we take an individual, and if they're born at the top, if they're born as a CEO, if they're born as a black belt in judo, I reject this conclusion that being at the top is why you're happy. False. It's seeing that upward trajectory. And the way that we begin this upward trajectory is we begin as small as possible. I used to ask my friends this. I used to say, 1 to 10, how happy are you? If 10 is amazing and 1 is terrible, how happy are you? And my friend says, probably a 5. And I go, okay. I go, what do you have to do to go from a 5 to a 5.5? And he goes, 5.5? Yeah, I thought you were going to say from a 5 to a 10. I said, look, that's crazy. You're going to have to do some unbelievable things. Start waking up at 6 in the morning, whatever, right? That's so big. That's such a huge of a leap that it looks impossible. It's going to discourage you and you're going to give up. But what do you have to do to go from a 5 to a 5.5? And all of a sudden he goes, look, I've been working a lot and saving a lot of money, but I'd really like some time off. And maybe if I took Saturdays off, that would make me feel really, really good. It would not only take me from 5 to 5.5, probably 5 to a 6, maybe even to a 6.5. So the idea here is that we look at the miniature successes in our everyday lives, and it is so hard to do, right? If I were to ask you, what are you grateful for? What comes to mind? The first thought's going to be big things, I'm grateful for my family, for my wife, think even smaller. Think even smaller. Think about the little things that you don't normally think about. I'm grateful for the fact that I can make videos and post them on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and people can hear them, and that's great. I'm grateful that I am privileged enough and financially in a good place where I can afford a phone to do such a thing. So you can begin as small as possible. And when we do this, it's going to change the way that you look at yourself and thus change the way that you interact with the world around you. So earlier we were talking about this idea of being a loser and not having great self-esteem, and how do you go from there? And the advice that I have for you is you look at, in concrete summarization, what are you? Okay. What would you like to be? Okay. How can we diminish that gap? What can you do as small as possible? And this is a really weird one. What is the minimum amount of effort that you have to put in to move one step forward? What is it? How can we make you being better and feeling happier and overall increasing your life satisfaction with the minimum amount of effort as possible? Think smarter, not harder. And if that's going on a walk, a 20-minute walk once a week, awesome, great. I'm proud of you. Amazing. If that means Spending more time with your family? Awesome. Good. If that means working out a little more, awesome. Whatever is the minimal amount. Now, why the minimal amount is because it's so easy to get discouraged that when we look at, first of all, it's hard to conceptualize how our lives can be better. And second of all, when we do see that, it looks so far away. It looks so far away that we start questioning the possibility of ever getting there. But if we can look at the steps as small as possible and as practical as possible, it's doable. It is not easy. And it's going to take a lot of strength. The number one thing you have to establish is, where am I right now in life? Do I want to get better? If the answer is yes, the next question becomes, what would I like to be? And what has hindered me thus far? Why haven't I been moving forward? What else is going on in my life that has kind of halted and stalled my progress? And can I do this on my own, or do I need professional help? Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Take care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye-bye.